Hello, Craig here again for ForbiddenKnowledge.info, talking about electromagnetic pulse. In my journeys across the country, dealing with radiation detection and talking about nuclear war and survival products, I talk to a lot of experts. A lot of people that know a whole lot more about certain things than I do. For instance, electronics and electricity, electromagnetic pulse, and how to protect yourself, protect your equipment, I guess is more accurately. Well, I gotta tell you, I'm more confused than ever, because frankly I can't get the so-called experts to agree on some basic concept, such as the number one thing I can't seem to get an answer on is to ground or not to ground a Faraday cage. Some say you absolutely have to, some say you definitely don't want to. So I don't know. I'm just here to be honest with you. I'm just, but frankly, I don't know what you're going to put in a Faraday cage. Now, let me back up. For all those you want to get really technical on me, I know what I'm going to be talking about isn't technically a Faraday cage, because a Faraday cage is something different that the layman won't understand. But for the layman's purposes, a Faraday cage, what we're talking about is a metal box that has no breaks around it, no gaps. It's all solid metal box. And you put electronics in there to try to protect the electronics from the electromagnetic pulse, the surge of electricity, the electrons. So, that being said, we're talking about the layman's terms of Faraday cage, so don't get all technical on me, all you people out there that know more about this than I do. But frankly, what are you going to put in that Faraday cage? The average Joe, what are you going to put in that Faraday cage? There's only two things that come to mind that would probably make any sense at all. Number one would be two walkie-talkies, battery-operated walkie-talkies, where you have one and your friend has one and they communicate with each other. That will make sense to have in there, as long as they're both in that box when this EMP hits. The only other thing I can think of that really would make any sense would be a shortwave radio, the AM/FM shortwave radio with single sideband capability. Do some research on that if you don't understand why. The hams tell me that will be absolutely necessary, because the hams know a whole lot more about this stuff than I do when I do ham shows. And basically, better off would be a wind-up model that has an analog type of electronics rather than the digital ones. But the idea of the Faraday cage is to survive the electromagnetic pulse, so a digital one's presumably would be good, but then you have to have the batteries or some way to power it when you get out of when it gets out of the cage. So that's the only thing I can think of anyway to put in the Faraday cage that would make any sense. A lot of you like to say, well, I can hear you screaming now because I say you won't have electricity. You won't. I mean, even if you have a generator, listen to this, folks. A lot of people don't want to confront these realities because the only thing you can really do is go around and buy a generator and have fuel on hand, right? Well, when the EMP is bad enough, like it was in 1859, I didn't say if, I said when. That was by the sun. So even if man doesn't do it to himself with a nuclear device, the sun will do it for us someday anyway. It's a mathematical certainty. Will the windings in your generator and alternator survive from being short-circuited? When you get this mass corona ejection that sends these plasma waves around the earth and can short out all your equipment, all the electronics? You didn't think about that, did you? Or what about the coil that operates that thing, that creates the spark in the for the spark plug for the generator? Did that short out? There's hardly any insulation on those windings of those things I just mentioned. So even if you have a diesel-powered generator, are the windings in your coil, or the windings in your generator and/or alternator still going to be intact? Because if they aren't, you don't have a generator, no matter how much fuel you think you're able to save up. And are you going to be able to save up enough fuel anyway to last you a year and a half, 2 years, 5 years? Because that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about a simple week-long outage or a month-long outage. We're talking about indefinite length of time. This country is going to be hit really hard when this happens. And when I say this country, I'm talking about any of the several states that called the United States of America. So, and not only that, but if you have a generator and a lot of people all around you don't have a generator, well, that generator could be heard from many miles away, and let's see, we could use that generator, let's go take it tonight. You see, you become a target. Unless you can figure out a way to put it underground and muffle the exhaust somehow where nobody can hear it, you aren't going to have electricity. Even if the windings of the coil aren't shorted out. I know I'm going to make a lot of people mad by this, and here let's talk about your car realities here, because a lot of people, of course, cars will be likely shorted out too. They got plenty of computers on board. There's dozens of computers on board your car, any one of which might be able to shut your car down completely. But let's say you have because I can hear all the arguments all the time. Well, I got a 57 Chevy. I'll be able to go anywhere I want. Well, no, you won't, because frankly, you haven't thought it over. If you're the only one that has a car on the road, how far the hell do you think you're going to get on the road if the road isn't even blocked at all by the military, or bridges closed down, or roving gangs, or dead cars on the road. There's going to be so many millions of dead cars on the road. Are you going to be able to navigate around all those dead cars? And even if you can, well, all of a sudden up ahead of the road here, you got a car that's pushed out in front of you. Maybe they set it on fire, and you look in your rearview mirror, and all of a sudden you've got, uh-oh, there's about 20 people with shotguns behind me. You're dead. You're going to be gang bait to think you're going to go anywhere unless you go somewhere immediately on the back roads, and maybe the back roads will be blocked too by all these dead cars. You're not going anywhere. So all those of you who have a retreat that's 50 miles away, better have a bicycle or start hoofing it, because you probably aren't going to go there in a car, even if you have a 57 Chevy. Sorry, this is some of the realities you need to face here. The best way to deal with this, because see, we're all addicted to electricity. That's the bottom line. You're addicted to electricity. Nobody's really prepared for what's to come. Because when this full solar flare hits, about 90% of us will be dead after a year. And right away you think, oh, because of the rioting, because of the looting, because of the violence, and no. Because of sanitation. No clean water. No sewer. No trash pickup. No medicines. No refrigeration. That's how we're going to die from diseases. Most of you will die from disease, and most of you don't even plan for sanitation. All you so-called preppers out there, you don't plan for this. Best bet, be Amish. Be Amish quickly. But frankly, the Amish tell me, everywhere I go, that they're going to be the first to die. They're going to be among the first to die. You know why? They know why, because they're going to be overrun by people like you who don't know what to do. Because you're addicted to electricity, and they weren't. So you need to be able to learn how to live without electricity, and I mean truly live without electricity, including your cars and any other electronic devices you have. Communications will be very important. That's why I suggested the single sideband shortwave radio. That's going to be very important, because you might be hearing explosions off in the town next to you, or you see clouds of smoke in that town you're nearby, and what's going on? Do you dare go over there and find out? Are we being invaded, or what's going on? You won't have any clue unless you have some kind of communications. And that's going to be one of the most difficult things for those of you who prepared for all sorts of other things with food and water and so on, not knowing what the hell's going on, not knowing whether it's even safe to venture out past your driveway, you see. So the realities of EMP are quite a bit different, I believe, than a lot of you are led to believe. And the whole issue with the Faraday cage is another thing that it's kind of meaningless anyway, because you're not going to have much of anything you can put in there that's going to do you any good in case of when this does happen, unless you want to try to preserve your computers and things for 5 years down the road when you're able to actually turn things back on again and make them of any kind of use, because the internet will be down, of course, phone lines will be down, everything's going to be down, folks. Our whole world revolves around electricity. We are going to be instantly turned into a third world country, and guess what? The so-called third world countries, what we call them now, are going to fare a whole lot better than we will, because they are actually kind of living without electricity a lot of times anyway. They kind of know what to do. You don't. We just aren't used to it. So, probably stepping on a lot of your toes right now, I'm making a lot of you people pissed at me, but frankly, I'm trying to get some reality, something to think about, that the TV isn't giving you and a lot of the other preppers aren't giving you. They all think they have the common answers that, oh yeah, all you need is a generator and lots of fuel, and you'll be fine. Or all the Faraday, just put everything in a Faraday cage, you'll be fine. I think the reality will be a lot different. Nobody out there, including the so-called hardened preppers, are truly prepared for what's to come. And I'm going to add one, and I wasn't going to put this in this video, I'm going to add one more thing to it right now, because I did add it to another video, but it wasn't very well watched. Not too many people paid much attention to it. And that's the danger that nobody else is paying attention to in the whole country, virtually. Everybody else is talking about all the EMP and all the things that could happen. Well, I'm talking about one more thing that nobody else is talking about, just about in the whole country. And because what I'm dealing with nuclear and radiation and nuclear war, this is something that I'm trying to impart to people to really pay attention to, but nobody is. And that's the nuclear power plants. You see, when this EMP hits, all the nuclear power plants will shut down. They'll shut down safely. They'll all go to scram mode. They'll shut down, boom, they'll be done. They're done. They can't generate power anymore. They're all shut down safely. Sounds good, right? Well, no, not good, because as Fukushima taught us, you need to keep those pumps running. That water has to keep circulating, keep the rods cooled, keep the fuel cool. Otherwise, you start having the meltdowns like Fukushima. All right, that's what really happened to that plant. It wasn't the earthquake and tsunami that killed that plant. It was the loss of power of the pumps. That's what really caused that problem. And here, fortunately, in this country, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission requires an 8-hour battery backup and a 72-hour generator backup for those pumps. And that comes to about, not even 4 days. And the grid's going to be down for how long? 18 months, 2 years, 10 years? I think after about 4 days, unless they have enough fuel around to continue, and assuming the coils on their generators aren't shorted out, and all their electronics are still functioning enough to do something manually, we might have about 100 Fukushimas in this country and about 700 worldwide going all at the same time. So all of you who are worried about Japan and how we're all going to die because of what happened in Japan 4 years ago, I got news for you. It's about ready to happen in your backyard. And instead of making our grid harder, we're making it smarter, making the inevitable even worse. In our military, well, I talk to military brass all around the country, especially when I'm in the DC area, and frankly, I'm worried because they seem to be worried. They say, well, a lot of the people I talk to seem to think that we don't really have much. Some things are EMP hardened. Whether or not it's really going to withstand a big one, they aren't even sure, because a lot of this stuff is theoretical, folks. We haven't really faced this yet. And EMP weapons are so easy to manufacture by countries, so-called third world countries. But I'm getting the story from our military that basically, well, we'll just start replacing components. So our military is going to be crippled too, folks. So this does not bode well for the human race, actually, because everything's going to be upturned and none of you are really truly ready about what's to happen. So thanks for listening to my rant. This is Craig from ForbiddenKnowledge.info. Watch some of my other videos. So long.